What's going on, everyone? This is Sheets, and I have James McCool from Paydirt, and we're going to continue probably the never-ending exploration into the various tools that Paydirt has to offer, both to his members, to my members, to anybody who has interest in it. And again, for those who do not, who are the uninitiated, I mean, James is one of the real. I don't want to say good guys in the wrong way. I don't want it to be sounding too wishy-washy, too touchy-feely, but one of the real good guys in the industry with respect to. I mean, he really does a great job with what he does well, which is building tools. And building tools specifically for DFS players. And over the last year, as long since I've known him, he's I don't say dedicated in the wrong way either, but he's starting to lean a little more into stuff for GPP players in general. So as I start to learn more about the things that his tools can do, I like to use them and convey my thoughts to the community, and that's the reason why I got into this business, where this endeavor in the first place. Is a lot of people, when I got into DFS, they know me from poker back in the day, and they said, Sheets, what are you doing? And I'm like, okay, I'll let you know what I'm doing. I can't tell you what's right or wrong, but I'll just let you know what I'm doing and the things that I like. So every time I try to learn a new thing that James's tools can let you do, it's always very very, very educational to me. So what I did today in another video was for different reasons. They had the PGA and the tennis slate, and I do a couple of things when I play these sports all the time. Number one, I compare my ownerships to what the field actually did, to help me get better at ownership projections. I also like to take a look at my exposures relative to the field, and there are some sites that I use to do that. Like the Sports Projection Guy puts out something, very primitive, but something I like to use sometimes. SaberSim does some stuff as well, and James's site has has a contest analyzer, which I have yet to really start using, and he's continuing to develop it while I'm continuing to not use it. Okay, so I think it's a good enough time as any to kind of get into it and see what we can learn from this. So I'm gonna really just turn it over to him. I mean, if he wants to look at baseball from last night, that's fine too. But only because the tennis and golf is actually going right now, that I think it's kind of fun. So I'm really just gonna turn it over to him.
Yeah, I mean, this is I built this mostly to be something that could replace like lineup or results DB over at RotoGrinders. I think that results DB is cool, but one, there's maybe a little bit too much complexity in it, and two, if you try to do anything but the mainline sports, it just breaks. Like, you literally cannot go look at MMA. You literally cannot do PGA study over at results DB. So I wanted to build out a tool that would actually let users do that. It's a little bit longer of a process to get things loaded, for sure. But I think that comes with increased functionality and a better way to study. So let's go ahead and just share my screen, I suppose. I should probably.
Oh, let me see. You should be able to do that, right?
Yeah, I should be able to do that. Actually, you know what? Something that I like when we do Sheets, why don't you load it up and just see if you can make it work?
Yeah. Okay.
Because that's always good for me from a
Yep. Okay. Let me just see. I do not necessarily want to share my system audio. Hold on. Let's window entire screen. Why is it canceling? Screen share, entire screen. It's just not. Doesn't seem to be doing it for some reason. Entire screen. It's not even letting me share. I don't know what to tell you.
That's okay. I can do it. I assume.
Let's see. Oh, let me add to the scene. Okay, I guess that's
there you go.
It's not working. Add scene. No.
Almost.
Hold on. Add source. Presentation, extra camera, image, local video, screen share. Let's try this. I hate when this happens, like literally midstream. Should we start over? No, well, here you are. Hold on, there you are. Okay, you're screen sharing. Okay,
There it is.
let me make this so you can see it. And let's. Customize.
By work, I think that Sheets just left. Now it's just me. Hello.
Nah, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, Sheets back. There we go.
So now we got this one. I hope people can see this. Let me just make this bigger. There you go.
All right, that'll work.
Never in doubt.
Okay, so this is contest analyst. So you'll find this over in the experimental tools. Experimental tools are for now free to use until I've worked out kinks on them. The main one that I'm working out kinks on right now is Portfolio Manager. Contest Analyzer is pretty good right now. So what you can do is let's just say Sheets, if you were to come in here, what would you do?
Okay, I would say okay. I just entered some PGA lineups, and I want to see. I want to see what they look like. I want to see my exposures. I want to see what other people are exposed to. I want to see how I compare to other people. I want to see if my lineups are any good.
Okay. So let's go to golf. And we just had a lock. Today was lock, right? 703.
Yeah, do the sand trap. Yeah, may as well.
Okay. So I did want to note that you can do classic or showdown, right? And you
we'll do that next.
Yeah, you can also choose from any of the contests that I maintain in the back end for today. So we'll do the sand trap. You can do two different things here, right? So first off, you can go here, which will take you to the game center where you can actually see the contest, and you can download from here, or you can download from here. And what this will do is it'll just go straight into your downloads.
Oh, so that's what you answered my question. So you maintain the contest files for everything you track on your site.
Correct. Okay. I maintain the link to the contest file.
Right. That's what I mean. Okay.
So now I've downloaded this. I'm just going to go ahead and save this to my downloads because I don't really care what it's doing, right? PGA flagship. Close that, and then we're just going to go ahead and upload that. So then after we upload, you'll see that this file comes up here. Now, one thing that you can do that I just added recently is send this file to the database. So what this will do is it will send this contest file that we just uploaded into Paydirt's database so that I can continue to build, better models and maintain data a little bit more effectively. In the future, what that'll allow me to do is instead of having people upload here, if we have it historically in the database, they can just load it straight from the database. So if you're confident that you uploaded the correct file, then you can always then send the file to the database, which is helpful. But we're not going to do that right now. Instead, we're going to come over here. It does take a second to load up, especially if it's a really, really big contest. Like yesterday or 2 days ago, I think the $5 MLB lotto. That contest was like 46,000 people, which is massive. I need to continue to work on the optimization of getting things loaded quicker into this because it does take a little bit of time. But once it's loaded, you'll be able to see the full contest, right? You're going to be able to see a lot of information, base names, entry counts, like how many entries they have, all of their golfers, what the fantasy points they have right now, what the ownership was of their lineup, how many dupes they had, uniques, under 5, under 10, and what their percentile finish is and where they finish in the contest. Just as a basic view, this is the initial thing that you get.
Now, this, by the way, before we get into this, I mean, we're doing a full classic slate, but when we look at when you do this for showdown, specifically for contests where you might have dupes or whatever it is, this is really, really important. I mean, important. I mean, you're already locked, so you're not going to change anything. But as far as analysis goes, you'll be able to see like who's playing well. You know what I mean? Like who's has like 75 dupes in these contests, and who is you know, moderately unique. And you'll see the same guys near the top every week as far as that goes. This particular type of thing, like PGA Classic, there'll be no dupes. Even PGA Showdown, I don't even imagine when we see that one, there'll be many dupes. But that's a column that, you know, that becomes pretty big.
Yeah, it's really important when you're looking at Showdown and MMA. Those are the two big ones. So this is your basic view. You're going to be able to see all of the top lineups here. I'm pretty sure this is like 500 entries or something like that per page. So you can always go previous page, next page. Then when you come down here, you can also see information about the exposure for players. Those players' exposures in the top 1% of lineups, top 5%, top 10%, top 20%. This is, again, like your very basic, who was played and where did they finish. So when the contest is finished, you'll be able to do some analysis on who the top 1% finishers had the most of. Obviously, if Ben Griffin doesn't make the cut, then his top 1% exposure is going to be like 0% or 1% or something, which would make him a pretty atrocious play at 38% owned. But we won't know that until the end of the tournament.
So this is not mid-slate, right? This is.
Yeah.
Oh, so this is updating as of mid-slate. Who's the top? Who's in the top lineups as of now, or no?
Yeah, as of now. Yep.
Oh, okay.
So you can do this mid-slate analysis. For MMA, I think this is important, can be important. I did it over in the True DFS Discord. I was kind of going through, like, after every fight, I would go and re-download the contest file and then re-upload here and say, okay, well, X fighters have won. Here's all the lineups that have X fighters and who they need, right? Like who the biggest needs are for them, which was kind of a fun analysis to do. Some other things that you can do here, you can select different positions if you're, playing a sport that needs different positions. And then you can do comparison stuff. And I will show this off here in a second, but I wanted to go through the rest of these tabs. So you can also look at stack used info. This is more important for things like MLB, NHL, and NFL. Stack size info, again, not necessarily important for PGA, but for other sports where stacking is important, this stuff is really important. And then general info, this is another one that I think is useful and a little bit unique. It'll tell you what the average salary was, the average salary used in top 1%, 5%, the same bands that we have. The average finishing points, so the average finishing score in terms of fantasy points of all lineups in the contest versus top 1%, blah, blah, blah. Top ownership, duplications, and then uniques under 5 and under 10. So again, the duplications, uniques under 5, under 10, this stuff is more showdown and MMA oriented, but really important to see, right? Like being able to know, okay, the top 1% finishers had, I don't know, an average of 50 something dupes or something. It's like, okay, well, the chalk crushed. But if you had less dupes than that, you're probably in a better position overall, especially if your average finishing positions were pretty good. So I like this tab. I think it gives a nice snapshot of how lineups were built for the contest. And then the thing that that you and CKK have asked me for was kind of replicating that table of unique percentages, stuff like that. I did build this up as well. So again, this is more showdown and MMA oriented, but this is really important when you're looking for things like that.
So let's take a look at the contest. So how am I doing? Look at my lineups. You know what I mean? Like pull up the MBHaves lineups. Sure. See what they look like. See how they compare to others. Let's see how I did. Let's see what's going on here.
Yeah. So when you drop down this info and filters table, you can see a whole bunch of different things, right? You can see specific users. So we'll load up just you here in a second, or you can see an entries ranges. So only show users that have 150 entries, only show 150 maxers, or only show people that have a single bullet, or, anywhere in between, right? View lineups with specific teams. Again, this is more stacking stuff. This kind of stuff is more stacking stuff. View lineups with specific players. So if you want to see all of the Ben Griffin lineups, or view lineups without players. So show me only lineups without Ben Griffin, right? So we can go in and we can say we want to see MHABs and we just want to submit. So what that'll do is it'll show you all of your lineups, right? It'll show you currently how you're doing. If you're mid contest, at the end of it, it'll show you, oh, hey, you are actually duped. It'll show you information about your ownership, about your fantasy points, your dupes, uniques, all that kind of stuff, where your finishing percentile was for each individual lineup. And then you can come down here and you can look and see what your exposures were for any of the individual players, right? And where they finished, what your exposure to them was in top 1% of lineups, top 5%, all that kind of stuff. Again, general info, you can see based on you specifically, what your average salary used was, what your average finishing points was, ownership, all that kind of stuff. So this is how you take a look at just your lineups. And it's always default sorted based on finishing spot right now. So your best lineup right now is in 400.
So can I check and see like which from these views, like which players I'm ahead of the field on or below the field on, things like that?
So not right now, but I can show you how to look against other players that you are interested in seeing.
Can you look like me against like all the 150s, or I have to identify a specific player?
So I prefer to drill it down to a specific player, and I'll show you why in a second. So let's go ahead and reset the filters here.
So put me against like a good player. Put me against like Skyhook or somebody like that. I'm just throwing up a name.
So let's compare against, let's say, MHABs. And if you wanted to just see you against the exposure overall, you could do that, right? So
well, I could.
Yeah, let's go ahead and go here and say submit. And so you can see here, here's the exposure overall, and then here's you.
Right? Okay.
So you can see the exposures, and you can also do this for stacks, for stack sizes, for general info, all that kind of stuff. But what I think is important is looking against other players that you know, right? So let's go Giant Squid, who's obviously a monster, and let's just say Fate Bender. So when you do this, you can check you against all of them and against the field overall. So I think that this is the right way to take a look at how you're playing. While I think that it's important to look against the field overall, I think it's more important to say, you know, who did I have holding hands with Skyhook, right? So like if we go by your exposures, let's go by Skyhook. So like you were under on Sung Jae comparatively to Skyhook. You were also under for Gerard and Kim. Let's see who you were over, right? Like you were way over on Lee Hodges versus him.
Yeah.
So I think that stuff is more important. You know, I just think that if you want to try to replicate what somebody else is doing, you should compare against them, not against the field specifically. You can also do that over here, right? So if we wanted to see the same thing, let's see how you built your lineups versus Skyhook. So overall, in terms of salary used, the average for the entire contest was 49.6. You had 49.7. He had 49.6. Your average ownership was 75%. His was 70%. You know, things like this and being able to figure out how you kind of built your lineups in terms of ownership, salary, and then
this would make me feel better knowing that he had some dupes too.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And then obviously in MLB, like you would want to check what stacks you use versus good players. You'd want to check your stack sizes against good players. For Showdown, right? We can go look at a Showdown, or we can look at MMA from last week, and we can take a look at like you versus, players who do typically very well or players who typically do very badly, and get an idea of where you built out and how many dupes you had, what your under 10s were, stuff like that.
So one of the things, again, that some of the other sites like purport to do is to see like how your lineups are like simming. You know what I mean? Like how they rate to do given like projections or given whatever? Are we at that point in these tools yet? I mean, not to even say that the places that say they can do that can even do that. I'm
Right.
just saying. But are we at that point yet? Because I know that you do have that you yourself that the Paydirt itself has its own contest centers.
Yeah.
So I wonder if down the road we could say, okay, how are my lineups relative to I don't know, like how are they doing predicting? You know what I mean? Like given what other people have, given how the players have done, given what's left, which lineups are really live as opposed to the ones that look like winning 1 million, but really like no chance to win.
Yeah. I think that it's hard to do that correctly, and I don't like to do things that I can't do correctly.
That makes perfect sense.
You
want to do the showdown slate?
Yeah. Let's take a look at the showdown slate.
Because I played I think 40 in the showdown slate. I think
in the PGA one.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So let's take a look here. The pitch and putt, the 10K to first.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Grab this. Oops. File, save as. Go here and just grab this. So this one should load considerably faster because it's not gigantic, right? So here you go. Again, like we can see a whole bunch of info here. Ben Griffin was 29% owned. Denny McCarthy was 28% owned. We can go over here and we can see the general info here. Average dupes was only 1.1, pretty good overall. Uniques 22. There's only 70 lineups per, like that's the max here. Right? So let's go ahead and take a look at
who's that dude that always does well in the showdown. They can't fade me. Let's see if he's played this thing.
Yep, can't fade me. M-Habs, and I'm sure that Skyhook played it too. Let's go and do that. And let's take a look here. I can't fade me looks like he only had one lineup.
Okay. Sweet.
That's right. Yeah, okay. So you had 40% Ben Griffin, only 12% Denny McCarthy, and you basically flipped with Skyhook there.
Yeah.
He took that shot on Denny, who he knew would be high owned, but that's where his anchor is, right?
Yep.
So there you go. You get a nice little coin flip there against another good player. Let's go take a look here. Let's say Skyhook and Habs. Submit. Take a look at and see how he did here. So his average salary units was 49.3, yours was 49.5. Average ownership was a little bit higher. All of his lineups were under 10, under 5, and all of them were unique. Same with you in terms of 40. So not much to glean from there, really. We can also go here and look at duplication info, right? And this is more useful maybe for MMA. You want to take a look at an MMA slate?
No, what I want to do is I want to look at the tennis slate from today.
Okay.
Because I was very annoyed with how I played today in tennis, because I usually do a really good job at minimizing dupes in tennis with my old process, but I've been messing around with this new this new like portfolio diversification tool that SaberSim is offering in beta. So I fired it today without even thinking to double check, and I got way too many non-uniques for my liking. And more to the point, like way too many non-uniques relative to the field, the way I looked at it. You sometimes if you just can't get unique, and I look at like good players and no one's getting unique, that's fine. But today I played 40 lineups. I think I had like 20 with 20 uniques, which was unacceptable to me in a 22 fight slate, so to speak, or 22 game slate. So I want to look into that a little bit more. So if you could look at a tennis, the whatever it's called, the line painter.
Let's see if I can get tennis loaded, because I didn't have that as an option.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
See if I can. What is tennis?
I have the contest file if you need it.
No, because it needs this part.
I see. Okay.
Let's see. So is tennis 6 people?
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you can't get tennis up now, that's fine. But if you want, you could do the MMA slate from last week if you want.
Okay. Yeah. Let me.
It's the same thing. I just happen to have been thinking about it. That's all.
Yeah. Let me see if I can get tennis up here.
And again, I just play tennis more than most. I mean, just me, just me and CK, basically the only ones that play everything. So I play every day the tennis, and I just figured maybe because it was Wimbledon, there'd be more people to be interested now.
Yeah.
Because usually the line painter pays only $5K for first, and now it's paying like 15 or 20 or something. So I guess that's when you get like the people that just started playing. But let's look because last week's MMA slate, I really I actually used the portfolio manager to some degree to predict dupes, and I don't say got lazy, but I never had a chance to really look and see how it all turned out. As far as how many dupes I had or whatever, I know I didn't win, but I want to see how it all ended up and how I looked.
Yeah.
Now, one thing again, everybody should know this is when you compare. When you use them, and now we're transitioning a little bit to the portfolio manager discussion, but when you predict dupes and then you compare the predicted dupes to the actual dupes, you have to make sure that you rerun it with the actual ownerships. In other words, like if you're getting more dupes than expected, it could be because it probably is because your ownership projections were terrible.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do, and I just again, only so many days in a week, right? So many hours in a day, is to go back and re-predict them, you know what I mean? With correct ownerships, and then see how many dupes they were relative to the actual predicted. So that's an important point.
Yeah. I think that one of the things I want to do, because I mean, I'm obviously happy with the way the dupe calculations work, but I want to do a little bit better for that with regards to regular sports like MMA, which I mean, it does good on MMA. I want to continue to try to improve that and maybe rewrite some things for Showdown. Because I think that for Showdown, it can be a little bit squirrely sometimes. All right, here is the MMA slate from last week. So let's just straight up go and take a look at yours.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that what ended up happening is my ownership projection must have been awful because I filtered it like to have max 9 dupes, and I was getting actually.
This is pretty good.
Yeah, this was not bad actually. Okay.
Yeah, this is pretty good.
So you know what? That did a pretty good freaking job actually. There are a couple of outliers out there, but they're for the most part, yeah, this is actually really good. I'm like actually more happier about this than I thought I was going to be. Okay.
Yeah, that doesn't look too bad. Let's go ahead and do all and reset our filters really quick. Is that back normal? Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and say do some comparisons here.
Yeah.
We'll throw a Squirrel Patrol in there.
Yep.
And then just for fun, because he's my favorite person to look at MMA lineups because he's really bad.
No.
All right, so let's see. You took a big stand against Tapuria.
Yep.
10% under there. Let's see. I mean, Squirrel Patrol didn't take basically any stands. He was just he was over on Smith. Oh, I guess he was over on Diniz. Yeah, I mean, Squirrel Patrol, he plays pretty GTO these days.
Yep.
Let's see what Big T did. All right, 73% on.
There you go.
That guy. Yeah. Okay. So you had your biggest hold was McKinney versus Delgado, and I think that we talked about the McKinney thing last week, right?
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, like both of my topics, my top exposed guys like smash. All 3 of them really. Actually, Pantoja not so much, but the rest of them didn't perform as well.
Yeah, life's hard sometimes. Life is hard. I mean, it was the fate of Tapuria, right? That's really what Kill Deal looks like.
Sort of, you know what? Because it wasn't even that. Because even when it was only like 1 or 2 fights to go, I was already dead anyway. I mean, I had a couple of Oliveira lineups that could have gotten me in the top 10 or something like that, but nothing was really live going into the end. And this is, it's funny. You made a comment on my play a few weeks ago where you thought it was pretty cool that I was able to have like so limited dupes with still getting with 80% Marab.
Yeah.
And you could do that. The problem is that the Marab lineups and are going to have like very fishy remainders of the lineups,
Yeah.
So I could have 50% Delgado, yay, 50% McKinney, yay. But then when you look, I have like 38% Hermanson, for example, can't have everything. It's like to be non-duped. You can't have the obvious good plays like Delgado and McKinney and not have some plays that are going to project poorly, So,
when you're limited dupes,
these low dupes, but there's a reason why these are low dupes. It would be nice to know what the because the way my process was is I ranked them all by ROI from SaberSim. Then I went in and I literally I said, you know what, 300 lineups is enough to choose from. I filtered out 9 dupes or less without even calculating whether those are going to be like the worst of the ROIs. And then at the end, I just said, okay, I'll resort the rest by lineup edge. So I really went for, you know what I mean, like for kookiness. And that was because, listen, you have a 12. I think I got reduced to 11 fight slate, and 2 of them being 5-round fights. I mean, it's a chalk fest in most variations. But then, as it turns out, what won was a 3-round game stack with Royval and Van, and not only that, but it wasn't even unique. Like 2 people had it. It's like
and one of them it was a single bullet too.
Oh, there you go.
Here is your kind of snapshot for you, Squirrel Patrol, and Big D. Average overall dupes in the contest was 42. You had 9, so there you go, 9.9. Squirrel Patrol 9.8, and Big T 35. Average salary used in the contest 49.6. Yours was 49.7, so that's actually pretty good to have a higher average salary used and lower dupes.
Yep.
And then Big T used 49.8 and Squirrel Patrol 49.6. Ownership, you can see, I mean, like when your average ownership is 191, basically 6 points below average, you're going to have way higher dupes.
Yeah.
178 for you. You had 103 of your lineups under 10. You had 58 under 5 and 7 total uniques. Interestingly, Squirrel Patrol with a higher ownership actually had more uniques and more under 5. I
saw that. I saw that when I looked at it. There were people with more straight uniques, but not as many the under 5s.
Yeah, he is so good.
He's good. You know what I mean? He's good.
He's so good, especially when you go and you look at his exposures, and you see that he didn't really take like any big stance. Like he was pretty much against the field. He was on a lot of the same guys.
Yeah.
And he still ends up with
a
really nice portfolio. Man, he's good.
Yep.
Yeah, this guy's good.
Yeah, he's good, Damascus. So yeah, this is kind of the process, right? I mean, if you wanted to go through here and you wanted to say, here are you, and compare up against Squirrel Patrol, who we know is really good.
Yeah.
Then you would sort this by Squirrel Patrol and say, okay, well, where did he take his stands and where did I? You were way over him on McKinney. He was about the same as the field on McKinney. He was double on Diniz, and you were about even the field on Diniz. So then what you would do is you would go back and you would look at your projections. You would look at the way that you built, and you would say, what did he do or see differently that I maybe missed? Right? Like he had 32% Car France. You only had 7%. He was over the field, you were under the field. So maybe that's something where you could go back and look and say, did I miss something with this fighter? Or is this something that I need to plug in my process?
Right.
You pretty much matched the field on Pandoja, and he had half the field, 27%, right? Like what did he see here that made it so that he wanted to instead have his stands elsewhere?
Well, right? I mean, again, when you do this, it's also I don't want to say you want to compare apples to apples, but like what I would probably try to compare, because I'm more of the type that doesn't really like uh take stands or say I want this or say I want exposures or have many opinions and stuff. I consider the way I play a very like a poor man shady advice. You know what I mean? Like I'm obviously not as good as he is, but it's similar. He uses Saber Sim. He doesn't care what the results are. He doesn't care who's playing. He doesn't care whatever. And just wins more than me. You know what I mean? Just better at it. So though, and like guys like Giant Squid. You know what I mean? Like those like kind of like tech guys who are just better at it than I am. Like those are the guys I like to compare to. Let's see, where did Shady Vice play? Yeah, he did play, right?
Yeah. So we got him up here. He met the field on Pandoja. He met the field on Tapuria.
What were his uniques looking like?
What was his uniques? Let's go take a look.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Let's replace Big T.
Yeah,
he's an incredible MMA player with Shady.
Now, be nice.
He's bad at MMA. It's okay to say it. He has fun, but I would not be replicating him. Shady with 23 overall dupes. He was worse in regards to.
Yeah, he was chalky.
Yeah, he was pretty chalky. 190%. That's pretty high. Only 7 below.
If you automate it again, like you're on an 11 fight slate, you're probably going to get this type of stuff. You know what I mean? Because I literally, like, because I'm addicted to the unique stuff, I forced it. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, I had 300 lineups that I thought were reasonable, and the first thing I did was, I don't care how good they are. If you have more than 10 dupes, they're gone.
Yeah.
So my approach is more likely to produce this type of result than if I actually cared about whether the lineups had chances to win or not. So
right. Yeah, absolutely.
That's something. But this is great. So you can get to this. You could certainly get to it if you subscribe to Paydirt, right?
I mean, this is free right now. You can use this.
Is it free for even like non-subscribers?
Yeah, it's totally free right now. You can just go use this while I test things.
Yeah, and basically everybody's beta is your beta tester right now.
Right. That's exactly right.
So yeah, I encourage anybody that's got time to screw around with this, because I think, listen, this is what everybody's leak is, honestly, in pretty much everything in life is not learning. You know what I mean? From your play or from your process or from whatever you do in life. You do something and it doesn't turn out the way you want, or it does, and then you move on to the next thing rather than spend a little time figuring out why you didn't do as well as you thought or why you did better than you thought, whether it be DFS or your anything in life, honestly, whatever your job is. I mean, you try a case, you know what I mean, and you're a lawyer, and then it didn't work out, you didn't get as much money as you thought, or you got a bad verdict. And instead of like going back and analyzing it, you know what I mean, and seeing how you could have done differently, you're on to the next case, you know what I mean, or worse, you write it off, oh, bad jury, you know what I mean, like, and then you're on to the next thing. So it's our leak as people with limited time in general. So whenever you have the opportunity to do so, you really should try to dedicate time to doing this type of stuff. And unfortunately, because people don't spend that much time on it, there aren't that many content providers and tool makers feel as though it's not worth the time to put in. And in a sense, they're right. You know what I mean? Like why spend time developing a tool that no one's gonna use, right? So the good thing is your obsession with building good tools is everybody else's benefit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I listen. It's also a do as I say, not as I do. So I wish I spent more time on this, but I do it every day with my tennis and my LOL lineups every day. And probably because they always lock like really early in the morning, whatever, is that I always do push-ups. Okay. Like if I have lineups that are not unique or doesn't fit whatever, I always do as many push-ups as is the discrepancy. Like if I play lineups and I have 20 with dupes, I'll do my 20 push-ups. So I do some analysis but that's just because I have time to do it for those very easy sports to do. MMA, I don't have as much time, but I should.
That's that would be a great content idea. Every morning, go in, review, and you could, like, for sports like MMA or Showdown or League of Legends, you could do push-ups for every do.
Yeah.
For something like MLB, you could do, like, I don't know, you could do a
whatever.
push-up.
And James, I've done it. I mean, I said, okay, now I'm doing my push-ups, but you know what? The camera didn't like work. Like, it doesn't like filter down. So I went and I said, okay, I'm doing it. And people heard me count them off in the background. But like I said, that's good for me to do with like 7 people watching, but it'd be good for other people to do with like more people watching.
Yeah. I think that'd be fun. I pulled up MLB really quick just because I wanted to show the stacking stuff. So I just pulled up my exposures. I played the $4.20 max last night because I'm testing out the portfolio manager.
Yeah, let's take a look at it.
I had 80% Ohtani. I also had, hilariously, 45% Will Warren. He put up negative seven fantasy points. I made money last night. I want to point that out. 45% Will Warren against 10% from the field, and I made money. And that was mostly because when it comes to stacks used, so overall, Houston was in 30% of lineups. Dodgers were 10, Angels were 10. Overall, top 1% was Texas, New York, Houston. You can see all this kind of stuff. But for me, go take a look at how I shook out here. I had 20% Houston. I had 30% Dodgers lineups, 10% Angels, 10% Boston. But then, wait, I also had 10% White Sox, 10% Boston, 10% Angels, and 20% New York Mets. This was the big one.
Well, what I would say, by the way, in terms of the do as I say, not as I do thing, like given what we discussed the other day about how to use the portfolio manager, something you wanted me to do that I didn't want to do, like if you listen to yourself, I mean, like I would have you showed me this whole concept of, okay, so I'm playing 40 all this Will Warren. Let's just make sure that I have like some Toronto, and there was a nice, easy way for you to do that within the portfolio manager to make sure that you did that. And who knows, you could have been really competing for some dubs in that tournament.
I absolutely could have. You want to know what I did instead?
Yeah,
tried to use some easy buttons, so I didn't go through my regular.
Gonna do what?
I tried to use some easy buttons. I mean, look, I can show exactly what I did.
Yeah.
So I built out some new functions. I did a little video on this yesterday. I'm not going to go over all of the functions at the moment, but I think it's this one probably. Yeah, this looks right. Okay, so we'll load this up. So I built out some functions that aim to kind of like manage my exposures and manage my chalk without me worrying that much about it, because we had that discussion kind of about negative correlations and everything like that. So I started building out some presets here. And the way that I did it, I have this hedge chalk one. And what this does is it'll take the top 3 projected ownerships for players and then the top 3 projected ownerships for stacks, and it'll do a flip-flop on them. It'll lock them in and give me large field lineups with them, and then it'll remove them and give me small field lineups with them. So if I just run this for 100 lineups, then you'll see what I mean. I'll be able to kind of show you. So it was only able to find 97 lineups with these constraints, but you'll be able to see what it's doing, right? So the first one, like what it's going to do is it's going to say, all right, Logan Gilbert, right, projected for 68% ownership. Let's build a whole bunch of lineups with him taken out that look good in larger fields. So that's this subset. You can see it based on ownership, right? And then let's lock him in and build some larger field lineups. So these are the smaller field lineups, right? This one from ownership 149 to 124.
Yeah.
And then here's some large field lineups with him locked in from 141 to 133. So you can see the median drop here. And then who's the second highest owned player that I have? right? The second highest owned projection was probably Hunter Brown, I think.
Yeah, I would imagine.
So then for the second set, right, we have, all right, let's remove Hunter Brown and build around him with some small field lineup logic, which is trying to push more ownership. And then let's lock him in and build some large field lineups around him. So that was these. And it goes through this process for the 3 top owned players and the 3 top owned stacks. And what that ends up doing is down here, now you can see your exposures that you have and you can see your stacks. So if I'd have just ran this straight yesterday, I'd have ended up with 34% Houston, 24% Dodgers, 14% Angels, right? Like, this is a pretty good spread. I don't mind this. But I only had 20 lineups because I was just in the $4 last night. So let's reset and let's redo exactly what I did yesterday, just so that I can show off how I'm using these presets. And I want to point out, still heavily in testing. Do not use these yet. These are just for me to waste money on for now.
Yeah.
So what I did was I went in here and I actually removed Houston at first because I had found that I was getting too much Houston, even when I was doing this process. I didn't want, I think I ended up with like 51% Houston or something like that at first. So I did half of my lineups using this process with no Houston first. And that gave me 10 lineups, right? And then add all of those to the custom export, just like we were doing on the portfolio manager video the other day.
And for those that are interested in what he was doing with trimming, I'll just tell you guys to go back to the old video and about what trimming is and stuff.
Yeah. We did a whole thing on this a couple days ago.
Yep.
So now I have back to my normal lineups. Go back here, pull this out, and then we're just going to do the same thing, and we're just going to run manage leverage with 10 lineups with Houston included, and then parse it all down. We'll get down to 10 lineups. Take a second, and then we'll add those to the custom export. And so what that ended up doing for me is I ended up with, I'm pretty sure, 17 lineups. There were a couple dupes, right? There were a couple lineups that were found in both, so it had to remove those. But now we can come over here. We can go to our export base. Yeah, we have 17. And then what I ended up doing was I locked in some New York Mets because they were the stack that looked best over at Paydirt. So then I went into back to portfolio, macro filter, give me specific stacks, give me New York Mets, parse those down, ended up 364. Yep, makes sense. And then down here, what I ended up doing was I just trimmed off of median and weighted own. And then I just took the top 3 lineups, right? And I just added those. And then if I reset my portfolio and I go look, then that will show us what I actually did end up with in my 20 lineups for the $4. And so this is kind of a deviation from the process that I talked about the other day. But the reason being was when I ran my process the other day, I actually ran out of time in the $5.
Yep, I've been there.
And so I was just like, what's going to happen when I get to NBA, right? Like if I have 3 minutes to run my process for NBA, I can't be going through that. Yeah. So I wanted to set up some presets here that can help me kind of say, all right, I'm in a large field contest. Just, give me large field, which is managing similarity, which, by the way, I added similarity scores, which I don't think you and I have quite talked about yet, but similarity scores are over here. They show you how similar or non-similar your lineups are to each other.
Yep.
On your entire portfolio. That's
sorted by what? By projected by median?
No. So like this similarity score, this uses Jacquard distance. This uses like heavy math stuff.
Oh, okay.
To tell you how similar your lineups are. I'll show those here in a second.
Okay. So then, right. That's not projected points. Okay, it's how the lineups look. Okay, I got it.
Right. So this I ended up with this with 45% Will Warren, which was brutal. And if I'd have gone through my process, I'd have looked at this and said, okay, I need some Toronto, and I need some, I don't remember who Logan Gilbert was up against in Kansas City. I would have forced a little bit of them, but with 20 lineups, there's only so much you can do. Right?
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
But this is where I ended up. This was my exact process, and I ended up I did okay. I think I finished 41st overall, with some pretty decent lineups. I actually, while we have this open, might as well. So we can look at my lineups. My second best lineup had Will Warren, and it scored 136 with Will Warren's -7.
Yeah.
Like that, this lineup was a monster. If it had like 15 fantasy points from Will Warren,
if you left it blank, I mean,
yeah, if I leave it blank, it literally finishes top 100, which is hilarious. But okay, so while we're still here and talking about Paydirt oriented tools, let's go back to the export base so I can kind of show what the similarity score stuff does.
Yeah.
So if we look at this, and this is sorted by similarity score, right? Like we can see here, a lot of these lineups look very similar.
They just look the same, right?
This is the same lineup. When you sort this by higher similarity score, right? These are much different than the lineups that we were just looking at. We still have a lot of Will Warren, but now we're looking at Arizona, Texas, Boston. Whereas these are all Dodgers, right?
Oh, so the lower the similarity score, the more like each other they look.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is all basically the same lineup, and then a higher similarity score means that it's
more diverse, right? Okay.
I'm gonna flip this so that it's not confusing because I understand.
I agree with that. By the way, I think you should do that. Call it diversity score or something.
Yeah, we'll call it diversity score. That's a better idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is kind of a huge thing when you're considering the way that I set up this preset. Like we can just go ahead and like run this preset for large field. If you want like 100 lineups, the main thing that you really want in large field is not necessarily anything but managing your similarity. So when we run this, we have 98 lineups, and what you can do is you can see now, like, if we're just not looking at similarity score at all, this is just straight median down. But you can see that as the median is going down, the similarity is going down as well. But what this does is forces it actually to be like, okay, here are my most similar lineups, but I want a good even gradient all the way through my portfolio so that I'm getting a lot of differences. And this is just kind of a natural way to do it rather than forcing certain things. So then down here, if I had just ran that, right, I would have ended up with 63% Shohei, 51% Kikuchi, 46% Warren. But, crucially here, I end up with 15% Dodgers, 11% Boston, 11% LAA, right? Like this gives a really nice spread for the lineup. So I think that this is probably the most interesting one that I built recently is the large field one. And I'd like to play around with it a little bit more.
Now, can I use this for all sports? Like if I want to just rate my MMA lineups by similarity, I could do that. I could do that as well.
Yeah, you can. Yep, this works for every sport.
And which drop down is this from? This is from the.
This is in the presets.
Right from the micro.
Nope, presets. So I added another one.
Okay.
We now have macro, micro, trimming, and then presets, and you can run any kind of preset. I will note really quick that the hedge the chalk one, that preset, the flip flop that it does is actually it starts with it'll remove the players and then run small field. So it'll remove the highest owned player and then run the small field one. And then it'll lock them and run the large field one. So you're getting kind of the best of both worlds if you use this hedge chalk one. But again, only use this if you are happy to burn money for a little while. Like I'm not completely sure of the math here yet. Yep. I built them a day and a half ago. So like give me like a week to test with my own money before anybody else who is not happy with losing money uses them. But I think that if you play around with them, you'll kind of get an idea of how they work and what they should be doing. And as I continue to get it more, parsed down and shored up, I think that these presets will be really, really valuable in things like NBA, for instance, where we might only have 5 minutes to rerun something and you can just say, all right, give me my large field preset and then just run it. Right.
So this should have been said probably at the beginning, but now I'm going to say it at the end. So the way, again, I hate to make everything about like life in general, or whatever, but the way technology and the way invention works, it works from separate paths. So on the one hand, you have someone who creates something because that's what they want. You know what I mean? They think it would be cool, and you create like things that you would want for yourself, and then what happens is the people that may or may not want to use it, they're like, well, I don't want it. I don't really want that, or ooh, I want to use some of that. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have people that create stuff based specifically on what people want. Like people, they say, okay, what can I build for you? And people give their advice, and I want to do this. And like DFS and James particularly, he's trying to walk that tightrope between, okay, there's some stuff that he really wants to build, and he can give a fuck if anybody really cares. You know what I mean? And there's other stuff that people want, and James like, I really don't think it's relevant, but I'll build it anyway. You know what I mean? Because enough people want. Yeah. And obviously somewhere in the middle of that is like the perfect content, right? Stuff that James thinks he wants to build and people want to see. The best thing that anybody here can do, especially if this is free, right? Or even is to bang around with it and give feedback, and say what kind of player you are, see whatever, and because right now it looks like I am like the beta tester. You know what I mean? Like I play GPPs, I play MTTs. I have a relationship with James where I can access him and he can access me, and whatever. But I'm not the only person that's relevant. You know what I mean? There's zillions of MTT. Now I'm back to poker. Zillions of GPP players and people smarter than me and dumber than me. That he wants to talk to. Right. about things. So reach out. I mean, obviously you're a Paydirt member, just or True DFS member, whatever. Just kill the Discord channel. Really, like all the input that you can provide would be like very, very helpful to yourselves. You know what I mean? Because James will build stuff if it makes sense to him and makes sense to you. And if things that don't make sense to how to use them, I mean, the more input people put out there, the better the output's going to be coming from James. So we're going to continue to do these again, like when I have time and he has time to continue to provide updates on this stuff. And as usual, we have no idea where these discussions are going to go. I hope this didn't end up getting too complicated. But who cares? That's always starts with a train wreck. I guess that's all I have. You have anything you want to say before we get out of here?
No, I wanted to answer a question really quick.
Yes.
Scott McCarty asked, do I restrict the stacks that I run to maximize correlation, or are you team take what the process gives me? I restrict. I will push 4 and 5 man stacks, but I do that in pre-render. So before I upload anything in the portfolio manager, like this file that I upload, I have already, when I export it from the player range of outcomes, I will parse it down to where it is only 4 and 5 man stacks, and I parse it down to where it is only lineups that are greater than a 48.5 salary. So I do some pre stuff here. It's worth noting that you can also do it here, right? Like you can do min acceptable salary 48.5K here. You can also do, include sizes only 4 and 5 man stacks here. You can do that stuff in the app, but I would rather load just 4,000 lineups rather than the 10,000 lineups that I get out of the portfolio, out of the optimal. So I wanted to answer that. And then I also just wanted to piggyback. I consider the people who subscribe to me and the people that listen to me as consultants, and as clients. So when I build something, like I just recently reached out to another really high level player and was like, hey, look, I have a pretty good idea of how to use the portfolio manager and what things are useful for MLB and for Showdown, but I don't know anything about sport X or sport Y. Can you help me in understanding how I need to build things for this, right? Like what functions make sense to you as an MME player, as a high level MME player? The same way that I talked to Sheets about it is like, look, man, if I want you to use this, I want you to replace the things that you are already using to do these things. How can I make it so that you build and build this into your process? Other high level users, like if you go to the range of outcomes, one of the things that I have built out recently is the hand builder. And I built this out specifically because I have a high level user in the Discord who was still using the frickin' Fantasy Labs hand builder. And I'm like, dude, like I can build that. Like I can build it and you can just have it here. Right. So my goal, as much as Sheets has said, is to make sure that I am building things that people want to use. Yep. Now, granted, there's times when people have bad opinions on things. I'm not going to build bad tools, but like something like this, things in the portfolio manager that I think add value, like reach out to me, let me know. I love beta testers and I love working with people. So, come talk to me.
All right. Hope this helped everybody. Good luck everybody, and have a good 4th. Hope somebody makes money. Hopefully you have a good weekend.